days and have been working with my esteemed Commissioner of Tourism, Beverly Nicholson Doty, and the Executive Director of the Virgin Islands Port Authority, Mr. David Mapp, who is also esteemed, and had some opportunities to meet with some of the groups in the islands. I should point out, and Beverly, Commissioner Doty will speak to this more when she's here, cruise visits for the upcoming season we have a very robust schedule, both in St. Thomas, St. John, and also on St. Croix. And Beverly will give you the details, but I believe cruise visits, the expectation of cruise visits on St. Croix this winter season is about 97% higher than the year before, so that folks are going to be kept very busy, and we really want to expand that growth here to the Big Island. As you also may know, that the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development has approved the government's request, have approved my request, and set aside $32 million for dredging of the harbors and the channels, so that all of the dredge that we need to do, including the new route at the Gallows Bay Schooner Channel, is funded, and all of the maintenance dredge in Charlotte Amalie, the West Indian Company dock, the channel, the turn basin, the Crown Bay dock, and the north side of the Crown Bay dock, we have 100% of those dollars. Of the 32 million, 23 million has been released, and I have met with the Army Corps of Engineers so that we can hasten at least the maintenance dredge permits, particularly on the island of St. Thomas, so that the backfill from the dredging can be used in the highway project on the waterfront. The dredging of the harbors, particularly in the St. Thomas, St. John district, will permit more ready access and the ability to accommodate Quantum and Oasis class vessels. I'm told by the Virgin Islands Port Authority, with the north side dredging of the Crown Bay dock, a Quantum class and an Oasis class vessel can in fact dock at that facility. I learned something last evening from Mr. Torres, and I'm hoping that I'm going to get a D on my quiz here, giving this information back, that folks should recognize that every 41 days a new cruise vessel is delivered to one of the cruise lines. That's the rate and the speed by which the cruise ships are coming out. And while they're not all being destined or positioned for the Caribbean region, much of them are. And so these larger expanded vessels will be coming into the region, and so here in the U.S. Virgin Islands we want to make sure we have the current infrastructure up and running and ready to accept them, because I believe in St. Thomas this winter season we expect to see about 1.75 cruise visits to St. Thomas, St. John. And so if we want these additional ships to come, and larger ships to come, we're going to have the infrastructure. You may know that the ports of the VI, we are now working on 2 additional berths on the island of St. Thomas, and we're working with cruise partners in terms of what those berths will be, where they will be located, and then all of the upland improvements to take place with the berths. I was asked this morning, Lieutenant Governor, to do 2 housekeeping things in this press conference before I turn it over to Commissioner Doty. For clarification purposes, since January of this year, we have announced over and over, I posted on my Facebook page over and over, that every other Friday, the government of the Virgin Islands releases income tax refunds. For the edification of the community, when Lieutenant Governor Potter and I entered office in 2015, this is what we were faced with. Tax year 2010, tax year 2011, tax year 2012, tax year 2013, tax year 2014, those tax refunds, none of them were paid. Since we have been in office, since January 2020, and this administration has not had any opportunity to borrow money for tax refunds, to pay tax refunds, this administration has paid tax year 2010, tax year 2011, tax year 2012, tax year 2013, tax year 2014, tax year 2015, and we're in the middle of paying tax year 2016. We have released over $192 million over the last 3.5 years to taxpayers in the Virgin Islands. Remember that an average of $21 million of the tax refunds that are paid are never collected by the government of the Virgin Islands. Those $21 to $25 million are the earned income tax credit that the U.S. government pays on the U.S. mainland, but Guam and the U.S. Virgin Islands, the only two territories that pay it, are required, as of this point, to pay it out of its treasury. So if you do the math from 2010 to 2015, you will see that over $100 million that were paid in tax refunds for the tax years I have listed was $100 million that the people of the Virgin Islands, or the government of the Virgin Islands, have not seen nor did not collect. Now that doesn't help someone who's saying, yeah, but I want my tax refund for 2016. We are aware of that. But every other week, we continue to release tax refunds to the community, and we will do so. Second housekeeping chore, Lieutenant Governor Potter and I do stand with WAPA workers as they work orderly to negotiate for wage increases at the Water and Power Authority. The WAPA employees, like many employees of the government, have not seen any wage increase over the last 5, 6, 7 years. And while we in the executive branch are hastening to pay new wages and establish living wages, and we are daily resolving our wage negotiations with the various unions and implementing new wage increases, I can assure you that in the briefing by the Board of Directors of the Water and Power Authority, they did advise me that their budget contains money for unionized wage increases, and that they are committed to sitting at the table to negotiate those wage increases. It does not have anything to do with the governor, the lieutenant governor, or the central government. That's above our pay grade. But I do want to express our support for the WAPA workers, the employees of the Water and Power Authority, receiving adequate wage increases. All wage issues, like the central government, cannot be resolved in a single year. And those unions that have been working with the central government, recognizing that everyone cannot be brought up to step in the first year, and all of the years that you didn't get paid, you bring all the wage increases up in the first single year, that's not doable. So we are looking at multi-year agreements and attempting to assist our hardworking employees in getting the much-needed wages that they're due and owing. So let's turn back to the growth and expansion of the economy, and the growth and what I like to call the really very fine partnerships with the cruise lines. I'm going to ask Commissioner Doty to come up. The young lady that she's going to introduce, Ms. Page. I'm Commissioner Doty. I met Ms. Page, my goodness, I was yay high to a grasshopper. I was back in 1993, 94. I was a senator in the 20th legislature. And we were doing a lot of things trying to get cruise ships to St. Croix. And I had a piece of legislation I was sponsoring about letting the ships open their casinos at night and see if that would let them stay. So I didn't know where I'd get much information, and I heard about this FCCA, and I called and I went up to Florida and I met Miss Michelle Page, and she's just been a joy to work with, and an encyclopedia of information, and really it's been an excellent working relationship, and I want to thank you for all that you do for the Virgin Islands and for our alliance and partnership with the cruise line. So Beverly, I'm going to turn it over to you, and we'll stand here and give you all the support you require.
Good morning, Governor, Lieutenant Governor, our guests, Michelle Page, Carlos Torres Navarro, Carrie Meeks, thank you for being with us, and good morning to the people of the Virgin Islands. This is an exciting period for us. It represents a journey. We have been working with the Florida Caribbean Cruise Association for a very long time. I think that we transitioned from being friends to being family in 2017 when the storms passed our territory. At that point, I will tell you that 24 hours after the storm, I reached out to Michelle Page and I said we needed help. And Michelle and the team of cruise executives were there for the Virgin Islands. The important thing is that today is a step in our journey. It has been a constant positive progression. We have been working on major issues that pertain to the visitor experience in our territory, and Michelle's going to speak, and Carlos will speak more about that. But we have also been looking at the fact that one destination does not make an itinerary. And so Michelle and the team at FCCA have been instrumental, and I'm pleased that the Virgin Islands is at that table in speaking to how do we enhance our region, because our region is not just the Caribbean, our competition is the world. And so how do we move the Virgin Islands at the same time that we understand that our neighbors in the region are important to that itinerary planning? And so it is an honor for us to be at this point today. We have been working specifically with Disney Cruise Lines that had offered their expertise over the last few years. They've been working with us even more in terms of how do we make sure that St. Croix is seen as its own destination. And, you know, my roots are in Bedford, so, you know, I really say this with all the love for the Virgin Islands, but St. Croix doesn't want to be St. Thomas, and we don't need another St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands. We need St. Croix to be represented, and our culture, our history, our food, these are things that passengers are looking for. And so we had a very successful meeting over the last several weeks with our tour operators on how we enhance that visitor experience. And we had another meeting with an entire group this morning of providers, tour operators, attractions, activities, those providers, in terms of taking us to the next stage. Now, the governor said that the team was on island for 2 days, and technically that's correct, but they will have been here for only 24 hours by the time they leave this afternoon. But we have kept them busy. We wanted to make sure that they experienced St. Croix. And so with that, we engaged them in the process so that they could give us positive feedback. I'm going to ask Michelle to come to the podium, but before I'm going to also ask Mr. Tyrone Lee. I believe he's in the audience. Do I have it right? And Commissioner McCollum as well? Yes. Yes. We are excited. The Florida Caribbean Cruise Association holds several contests every year, and this is incredible. This young man did run the poster contest, and the poster contest was a depiction of the visitor experience, but also as a young person looking at the environmental importance of keeping our environment pristine. So I'm so excited to have Tyrone, Commissioner, so thank you
So my poster is about the environment of Big Black down in West, known as the pier. So it's about when me and my father would go diving a lot. So one day we were diving, and then we see a lot of debris in the water. We see fishes stuck inside a bottle and dead. So that came to my mind, so I made an idea to do stuff to prevent it. Yeah, that's about it.
Your depiction of the diving experience, which is so important to our overall visitor experience, was telling, and you beat out everyone else in the Caribbean, and we're proud of that, and we're proud of the young people in our educational system. So thank you so much. I'd like to now turn over to Ms. Michelle Page, who is going to speak more about the cruise industry and the relationship and what's in store for the U.S. Virgin Islands. Michelle?
Good morning. I'm very honored to be here. First and foremost, congratulations to the entire U.S. Virgin Islands. Your resilience and hard work paid off. Even though you suffered and you had 18-hour days working to rebuild for tourism, your efforts have paid off. I congratulate you. We stand with you. It would be remiss of me to not tell you what your governor did, what your commissioner did, your lieutenant governor did. They communicated. I know that sounds simple, the word communication. It's not. When you have devastation all around you, it's hard to be able to have the presence of mind to reach out to your partners, first of all to know who your partners are that you can depend on, and communicate in a way that can systematically be enacted. And that's what it's so special that we need to have people evacuated. We need these items to be delivered. We need you to work with our private sector to rebuild, because we want tourism back, because we know that our people need that economic impact. And as the commissioner said, you did act in unison with the other destinations that were devastated, but you were leaders. How were you leaders? You showcased what you did. Other destinations, Puerto Rico, St. Martin asked, what should we do differently? Because you were the epitome of what a destination should do to rebuild. So it's very, very important for me to stand here and congratulate your leaders, because you could not have done things better. And it's very hard for me to say that because it's not in my nature. My nature is to, why are you laughing? It is, part of my job is to make things better. I can only so be proud of being part of this family, part of this team. And where are we? I am very, very proud to tell you, even in spite of the devastation of last year, your economic impact for passenger spending has increased by almost 10%. You went to $165.50 from $150. That's a tremendous increase. So for every passenger ship that comes to the destination, you're reaching almost $650,000 per vessel in just passenger and crew spending. What more can we do? The sky is the limit. Let's look at St. Thomas with the infrastructure improvements that the governor is showcasing, with something that we've asked for 2 decades. 2 decades we've been asking, if you can't move people, people are going to get back on the ship. They can't spend money on going on church excursions, going into restaurants, buying things. You got to move people. Taxi drivers are very, very important. They have to do their job. But if there's a bottleneck, if there's not enough ability on the streets to just physically take those vehicles, how do you move people? water transportation. Very, very, it's a key in the going to the next step of being able to take more ships, more passengers and crew, and having them spend more money. Happy passengers spend money. Extremely important. This is all due to the dedication of 20 years of work that was culminated this year, so congratulations for that. We're working with the private sector, both on St. Croix and on St. Thomas, to make each of the islands different, distinct. Tell us the story. You know, yes, passengers have been coming to both islands for a long time, but one of the things that we found out in the economic impact study is only 31% of the passengers have not been here before. That means that 69% of cruise passengers have experienced your destinations. Give them a reason to be excited. Give them a reason to get off the ship. Give them a reason to experience the people. And that is also the key that we have found out. What set your destination apart last year? Why were people telling us that even though you were experiencing a comeback, even though things weren't the greatest because you were still rebuilding, what set you apart? The people. The people of the Virgin Islands are your secret weapon. It's the people. And that's what the commissioner, the governor, the lieutenant governor are working with, to make sure that the people are a key in turning that lock, to make sure that the passengers experience that, to be able to know what the local customs are, the local dishes are, you know, local art, everything local. Let's make it special. So I'm honored here to be here today. I'm honored here to be with my family. Let's make this the next year the best possible cruise ship year for economic impact in the Virgin Islands. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Carlos. Well, I'm proud to have Carlos Torres Navarro as the chairman of the operations committee. More important to him, he's vice president for Carnival Corporation, because that's where he gets paid.
I'll be brief, but you know, when I started at Carnival 2006, and one of the first things that I was asked to do was to assist in trying to get a long-term agreement done for preferential berthing within the territory, and it was only in the governor's first year here that we finally got it done, and not only did he get a deal done with Carnival at Waiko and another deal with NCL at Waiko, but he got a deal done at Royal Caribbean, at Vipa and Crown Bay. So the foundation that the governor has started here and his team in terms of stabilizing what has historically been a great amount of cruise business without really sort of any contract to back that up, well, now you have that. You have a sound foundation from which to build. And so what does that growth come? Well, in addition to all the dredging that's being done in the harbor, not only at Crown Bay, but also to help Waiko accept larger ships, you know, he's also driving an initiative to talk to the public about, you know, what can be done in terms of growing the berthing capacity within St. Thomas. So that's started. We're having, you know, sort of great success in talking to different tour providers about new product, because every tourism destination needs new, you know, to get new product to invigorate sort of the demand for the destination. The other thing that Michelle touched on, and I just wanted to highlight that, which is a huge, what I believe, and we as the FCCA believe is a big game changer, is the introduction of water transportation within Charlotte and Maui. Let me explain how that will benefit. You have a great product, which is the water, and being able to show people and showcase that harbor to folks that are getting off cruise ships, and be able to see everything that's sort of, you know, to be seen from the water. You know, it's just amazing what it's going to do for what is the sort of what people view St. Thomas. But more importantly, it's also going to help the economic impact, because you're going to have not only people spending more within shops because they can get to the shops quicker. The taxi drivers will be able to get more pickups from the cruise ships to downtown, so you have more frequency, hopefully less traffic on the road. So all that sort of culminates in what will be sort of a robust improvement in what is the product. And then, you know, what we've always been saying, the comment today about the new cruise ship coming out every 41 days through 2026, and I'm sure we're going to be ordering more going forward. For St. Croix, the important thing is to sort of introduce yourselves for the cruise lines and the deployment teams that are creating these itineraries to say, yes, we know about St. Thomas and we definitely need to continue our business there. We know the BVIs, we know the St. Martins, but there's this destination that has appeared. It's already here, and it already has a foundation of what will be a great product for cruising. So this is what we were telling the shore excursion teams this morning was, give us a reason to stop here and be ready because we will be coming. The amount of cruise ships that are coming online will necessitate ports, and you want to be the port that is a port of not just because we don't have any elsewhere to go, but a desired port, a port that we want to sell to our guests because our guests are demanding it. So with that, I want to thank you again. I'm going to ask the governor just to thank him and for his commitment to us and to our industry, and to Todd and to Beverly. He's done a fantastic job, and thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Carlos. Carrie, thank you. Your commitment and dialogue this morning with the tour operators was so important for them to hear firsthand. And as an overview, in 2017 to the year 2018, there was a 97% increase in overall cruise passenger visits to St. Croix. We have 34 calls on the schedule for our 2018-2019 season, which is an increase as well. And in St. Thomas, there are 350 calls to the West Indian Company dock and 150 to Crown Bay. And so we are beginning to see the growth returning to the cruise, from the cruise industry to the Virgin Islands. And to Michelle's point, the passenger spend is ultimately extremely important to us as a destination, and more than 90% of all the attractions and activities are back in the St. Thomas, St. John district. We also have new offerings that are coming online in both districts on a continuous basis. So we are taking to heart the fact that we have to keep renewing. I think that the work that is being done in our towns are extremely important for the change that we are seeing of cruise passengers. So history, culture, intertwined with shopping, and how do we cross-sell and maximize the money that comes into our territory. So I want to say a thank you to the Virgin Islands, St. Croix, St. Thomas, St. John, because, you know, certainly tourism has our role, and we got some direct action steps this morning that we are already working on implementing, including, I should just tell the governor now so that, you know, forgiveness is easier than permission. You know, one of the things we heard this morning was that we needed to do more with the crew so that the crew became a bigger part of selling St. Croix. And so we're going to implement a crew program, and it will include some shuttles. And for my friends in the taxi industry, it's not a free shuttle. We're going to pay for it. But a shuttle that is going to take individuals to places that the crew are interested in going to. Because we know that if the crew is happy, the crew will help to sell St. Croix. And we're working the same way on St. Thomas, because we know that we are only as good as our last season, and so we have to get better. And our visitor experience team is working extremely hard to make sure that, I think the statistics indicate that more than 60% of the people that come on cruises have already visited the Virgin Islands. And so we need to make sure that we're showing them those new experiences every time they come here and getting to love us just a little bit more. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Doty. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Carlos. We really enjoyed working with you. And the work that my good folks at the Department of Tourism is doing and collaboration with the cruise line and the industry will really see significant growth. And we're really excited. A number of our people on the island are excited. We're talking about how do we bring our artisans and crafts folks really to the doorstep where cruise passengers come off, and how can the cruise passengers immerse themselves in true Virgin Islands culture and history and get that experience and learn about the Virgin Islands so that they take that element back with them, and then that helps to create the momentum to come back not only as a returning cruise passenger, but to come back as an overnight guest and spend more time on the island. So I want to thank you for the work. It's bearing fruit. It's been a long series of 3 years of getting through this, and the Lieutenant Governor, you're in my meetings, even in the 2014 campaign, with the taxi industry and having a candid conversation about water transportation and encouraging them to be involved and want to bid on it. And I was really, really heartened. I felt very good when I was told that 2 of the bids that came out to property procurement were from folks who were the taxi associations who were putting together a program to provide water transportation. And that's what it is. It's about growing to meet the demands of your customer. And the customer of the taxi industry is those persons who want to move from point A to point B, who doesn't have access to a car or renting a car, and relying on the efficiency of that business to get them where they want to go and get them there in a timely, safe and cost-affordable way. So we're really very happy to see these things come online and to be able to grow our relationship with the cruise industry that will materialize in more cruise passengers coming to the total U.S. Virgin Islands. We're now ready to open the floor to any questions any member of the media may have.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Governor. Ernest Good with Consortium. A few questions. Relative to the water transport on St. Thomas, is that already in play, or when are we going to see that?
Commissioner Doty?
The user agency, which is the Department of Public Works, along with Property and Procurement, went through the bidding cycle. We're in the final set of negotiations now. The water transportation is scheduled to start operating next month, and it will, the initial stops will be the West Indian Company, 2 stops on the waterfront, servicing both east and west of the Main Street area, and then Crown Bay.
And so we have the transport capacity to sustain that route.
The provider has delivery of 2 vessels that will occur within the next few weeks, and they already had one. We've already done one of the test routes, and one of the things that we're extremely excited about is that the water transportation gives an incredible opportunity to speak about our harbor, which is rich in heritage and culture and history. So yes, that is set to start operating within the next month.
Right, thanks. And I suppose you, the Governor, could answer this. Relative to our Frederiksted port there, some folks have said that, you know, when you come off, you know, the ship from Frederiksted, what we see or what the cruise passengers see needs to be a bit more attractive, more alluring. Are we working to that end?
I'm so glad you asked that question, because I'm excited. I want to thank Nelia Ross and Francis Williams-Augustine back here. They've been working, and I think that starting with the next cruise ship, Call to St. Croix, you're going to see a new total revamp. It is going to be festival every time you pull into port. It's going to be our Mokojumbis, our culture bearers, but we're also working, in addition to the entertainment and bringing the town to life, is that we also want to encourage food trucks, vendors, artisans, because at the end of the day, what the Department of Tourism is going to do is that we're going to create that atmosphere, but we want people of St. Croix to come out and make money. At the end of the day, it is so important that the vendors come out, and they also have a part of the story to tell, which is so important to that visit to all of our Virgin Islands, and we want to integrate more of that into the total experience. So I'm excited because I know what Francis and Nelia are working on, and you're going to see, we invite you down the next cruise ship call.
We'll be there. And to that end, part of, St. Croix vendors and those with items to sell and to showcase coming down to Frederiksted is the consistency of these cruise ships, right? So if you want to invest in, say, a food truck, or you're considering such a business, you're not going to do so if it's just sporadic calls. I know the governor mentioned last Friday 140 calls to St. Croix being a record, but there seems to be a disparity there because you're saying there are 40? What?
34.
It's 34?
34 calls, and I think that we're certainly working to 140. That definitely is something that we want to work towards. But there are 34 calls. What I want to say is that you're absolutely correct. That and one of the reasons we have our cruise partners here, because we want them to help us bring more ships to St. Croix. There's no doubt about it. I want to encourage those vendors that when we do have ships in port, this is our opportunity to showcase, and we will be working to get that information back to the cruise lines. Carlos gave us some good feedback this morning and how to speak directly to the online Assurex teams. But while every cruise ship call is an opportunity for us to get more. And so while I do understand and appreciate that we need to build our number, please help us by making sure that every call that we do get, everyone gets back on the ship and said, we have had a wonderful time in the Virgin Islands. We had a great time on St. Croix, we had a great time on St. Thomas, St. John, so that they want to come back. And nothing builds the cruise ships calls like demand. We want those passengers saying to Carnival, to Norwegian, to Royal, you have to have St. Croix on your itinerary. And so we need the community to help us with that.
Thank you, Commissioner. Thank you, Governor.
And one of the things that, again, partnerships are absolutely wonderful. We have more than 10, because I think we got additional sign-ups today. The FCCA conference is the first week of November. It's in Puerto Rico. Getting to Puerto Rico is easier for Virgin Islanders. We have more than 10. We have more than 10 already committed to come to the FCCA conference, and we've gone a step further. Not just having them in our booth, which is an opportunity in itself, but we partnered with FCCA. We're going to have a special luncheon, and that luncheon is not for Port Authority and West Indian Company and tourism. That luncheon is so that the Shorex people can meet one-on-one with our tour providers here in the Virgin Islands, because we want them to develop those partnerships, and nobody can tell that story better than them. Certainly we do our job, and we're going to continue to do our job, but we want the partners to directly be involved and come to the conference.
Thank you. Thanks.
Commissioner Doty, Stephanie Chalanarong from News 2. You were stating that Ms. Ross and a number of other individuals on the team would work on bringing more cultural bearers. I would dare to say that on St. Croix, where culture and tradition is more stronger, I would ask the question that you're bringing individuals to the location, but there are a number of properties that tell the story of the Virgin Islands. So also, are we working on excursions to get to properties such as like WIM and other properties that are like-minded, so that they can actually get the experience rather than just getting individuals coming to the event?
Okay, absolutely. The first goal, though, is we need them to get off the ship. So we don't want them to come into the pier and stay on board, and that happens in many instances. So we want to lure them out and get them involved and see that Frederiksted is alive, there's things to do. But absolutely, our ultimate goal is to make sure that they go back happy with empty pockets and just excited about it. And so them going to WIM, them going on a walking tour of Christiansted, them going into the rainforest, taking a dive, all those things that are so unique to a visit to the Virgin Islands is extremely important. So get the entertainment and the atmosphere in a festival atmosphere in Frederiksted is just to help to make sure that they see a vibrant town and they get off the ship. Of course, we want them to disperse all over St. Croix, and we're working. We have breeders that will be in Christiansted. We also have spots where you'll see pop-up entertainment throughout the island because we want to spread the wealth.
One additional question. Can you tell me for the boating, with the tourists being able to do water excursions, how many, the 2 vessels that you spoke about, how many individuals can fit on those vessels?
The vessel that we, the test vessel, was 100 passengers.
On each?
Per ship, right.
Per ship, okay.
Per boat.
Per boat. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Hi, Melody Rames, BI Source. Commissioner Doty, I know the vendors and entrepreneurs in Frederiksted are very excited to hear that we are again going to be opening up the area to vendors. But my question is, are they going to still be confined to the vendors that were, I guess, under the Department of, I guess, Housing, Parks and Recreation?
Sports, Parks, and Recreation.
Okay, Sports, Parks and Recreation. Or are they going to be expanded to bring in new vendors? Because we know that the vendors that they have there, they've been doing it for a while, like there's a limited number of spaces, and they're being held by people who have been doing that for a long time. Are we going to bring new vendors in and allow new vendors to
We are working with Commissioner Cruz and his team because we recognize that we have to respect the process, and certainly we want to make sure that we are any of the vendors that are invited to participate have gone through the correct channels and their business license and all the other things that they need to do. However, we are encouraging the expansion of vendors in Frederiksted because one of the directives that the governor gave to me is that it shouldn't just be the pier. We want to go all the way up to the Frederiksted Mall area and create a square, and so and make sure that the entertainment, that we have vendors, that we have food trucks, that we have lots of activities, not just as you come off the pier, but throughout that entire Strand Street.
So for vendors who are not under the system that's in place right now, how do they, who do they call to get in for the 28th of October?
Ms. Ross is right behind you. If you would speak to Nelia Ross, and we will be coordinating with Commissioner Cruz.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Okay. All right. Don't seem to have any additional questions. Okay. Would like to thank everyone, and I did want to concede that my information about a week ago about 140-something cruise calls on St. Croix was a mistake. It was 34. poor. I just have to figure out where I got that 140. I got to figure out where I got that 140 number from. That might be my goal, yes. All right, so thank you very much, and I know you have a few other things that you're going to be doing with Ms. Page and Mr. Torres and Ms. Williams.